Tonight, the U.S. president's primetime address to his nation.
My fellow Americans.
Joe Biden's first speech since exiting the race.
There's a time and a place for new voices, fresh voices. Yes, younger voices. And that time and place is now.
And why he says he quit the presidential contest.
I revere this office, but I love my country more.
A Canadian company at the center of an alleged scheme to bilk billions from international investors.
These offshore players are preying on the vulnerable.
Raging flames roar into Jasper faster than predicted, pushing out first responders. Plus, rate relief from the Bank of Canada and what's in the financial forecast. And the harrowing eyewitness account of a wild moment on the water.
I see the head of the whale and the mouth is open and it comes straight up.
We'll tell you what happened next.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina.
Good evening, everyone. The U.S. president delivered what history may remember as one of the most consequential speeches of his time in office late tonight.
Here, kings and dictators do not rule. The people do.
In an 11-minute address to Americans from the Oval Office, Joe Biden detailed his reasons for not seeking a second mandate and saying this about the woman now in the race for his job, Kamala Harris.
She's experienced, she's tough, she's capable. She's been an incredible partner to me and a leader for our country. Now the choice is up to you, the American people.
Here to break it all down for us is CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon. And Joy, this speech tonight as much about the future of his country as it was about Joe Biden.
Omar, this is a speech that the president did not want to give. Powerful, speaking from the heart about his painful, emotional decision to walk away from a second term. After a 50-year political career, tonight is bittersweet. He told Americans he ended his campaign for the sake of the country. Here's what he said.
Nothing can come in the way of saving our democracy. That includes personal ambition. So I've decided the best way forward is to pass the torch to a new generation. That's the best way to unite our nation.
Endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris has breathed new life into the Democratic campaign. If she can win against Donald Trump, she'll continue Biden's vision for America. The president faced pressure from his own party to drop out after that disastrous debate, concerns about his age, polls showing him losing badly to Trump. The White House insists that Biden's exit is not health-related. Tonight, he said America is at an inflection point, asking, does honesty, decency still matter? And telling voters it's up to them to save democracy. It's in their hands. Putting his own political ambition aside, he will campaign to help get Harris elected. Tonight, a first in a series of farewell messages as this president writes the final chapter of his political legacy. Omar.
All right, Joy Malbon in Washington tonight. Joy, thank you. And let's bring in CTV's chief political correspondent, Vassy Kapelos. Vassy, Donald Trump's line is that when it comes to policy, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are essentially the same person. How does Harris chart her own course in this campaign without alienating Biden supporters? And does tonight's speech by the president help her?
Yeah, I think it's such an important question, especially coming on the heels of basically a pitch-perfect political campaign for Kamala Harris over the last 72 hours. I thought one notable thing was she's campaigning right now. She was not among the 39 people in the Oval Office or those on the lawn after to greet Joe Biden, which signifies to me that her priority is that campaign and that she knows she has to chart her own course. The one risk I would identify out of this speech for Kamala Harris, for the vice president moving forward in her nominee-ship, I should say, or her campaign, is that he made it all about, understandably, a fight to save democracy. She likely will have to make her campaign about more than just that, because clearly it hadn't worked for Joe Biden so far. That's the one risk I'd identify coming out of tonight. She realizes, though, I think it's pretty clear she's got to chart her own path going forward. Omar? And
her own message. All right, Vassy, thank you. And Kamala Harris was the target of Donald Trump's attacks at his first rally since Joe Biden quit.
She is a radical left lunatic who will destroy our country. If she ever gets the chance to get into office, we're not going to let that happen.
Trump spoke to supporters in North Carolina at an indoor venue. His campaign staff revealing today there will be no more outdoor rallies after that assassination attempt nearly 2 weeks ago. Today, new video emerged from that shooting, people screaming and running for cover. The images coming to light as the U.S. FBI chief revealed the shooter fired 8 rounds and revealed this piece of evidence from the shooter's laptop.
On July 6th, he did a Google search for, quote, how far away was Oswald from Kennedy?
Lee Harvey Oswald was the assassin who shot and killed John F. Kennedy in Dallas in 1963. Donald Trump will meet the Israeli Prime Minister in Florida at the end of the week. But today, Benjamin Netanyahu delivered a defiant speech to a joint session of Congress in Washington. CTV's Judy Trin on what he said and the clashes outside the Capitol.
Outside the Capitol building, protesters burned the likeness of Benjamin Netanyahu and waved signs labeling him a war criminal. In his address to a joint meeting of Congress, the Israeli Prime Minister cast off blame and pointed to Iran, enabler of Hamas, as the common enemy.
Our enemies are your enemies. Our fight is your fight. And our victory will be your victory.
Amid the standing ovations, there were seats left empty by dozens of boycotting Democratic lawmakers.
He has put his own personal interests ahead of the interests of the people of his country, and what he has done in Gaza is unspeakable.
According to the Gaza Health Ministry, more than 39,000 people have died in the 9 months since Hamas attacked Israel. 2 million others continue to be terrorized by airstrikes, stalked by starvation and disease.
Bring them home now!
Some American families of Hamas hostages are frustrated Netanyahu is presenting to politicians instead of negotiating for a ceasefire.
Our prime minister, and there's no pleasure in me saying this, has come here for political theater.
There was no conciliatory tone in Netanyahu's speech, but there was an ask for more military support.
Give us the tools faster, and we'll finish the job faster.
Tomorrow, Netanyahu will meet with President Joe Biden to discuss the status of ceasefire negotiations. Then he'll travel to Florida to meet with Donald Trump. Omar.
All right, Judy, thank you. Here at home, gusty winds have pushed flames to Jasper tonight, faster than anticipated. And even first responders have now been ordered out. This is the apocalyptic scene just outside the gates of Jasper National Park this evening. Heavy smoke blanketing the area. The fires in the west also prompting major warnings. Most of Alberta was under an air quality advisory this morning, along with northern Saskatchewan, parts of the Northwest Territories, and BC. CTV's BC Bureau Chief Andrew Johnson on the fire threat.
Twin infernos are moving in on the eerily empty community of Jasper, where protecting homes is top priority.
They're removing flammables and combustibles. They're mowing out some of the brushing areas. They're going house by house, much like our RCMP members did yesterday when they went door knocking.
Fire crews have also set up sprinkler systems in neighborhoods at risk. The national park confirmed today the larger fire to the south has reached the town. Driven by strong wind, some structures outside of town had already been damaged.
Due to the burning conditions, the heavy smoke, and the aggressive fire behavior yesterday, it was not safe for firefighters or aircraft to get to those structures.
Close to 25,000 people were ordered to leave Jasper. The only way out was through BC, where tiny communities were overwhelmed with evacuees. Reception centers have now been set up in Grand Prairie, Edmonton, and Calgary.
I'm not sure how to describe it yet. I think I'm still processing it. I know our children are still processing this. They're talking about us every single day, saying, you know what, that was pretty scary.
In BC, we are seeing new images today of the monster fire burning in the Fraser Canyon. It's close to 200 square kilometers in size, one of more than 400 burning in BC.
Tens of thousands of lightning strikes and the hot, dry weather and winds over the past week have led to significant fire growth in many areas of the province.
There is relief on the way in both provinces in the form of rain. It's forecast to fall in Jasper beginning tonight. But in the words of one fire official, it doesn't count until it's on the ground. Andrew Johnson, CTV News, Vancouver.
We are taking a closer look tonight at an Ontario company now at the center of an international criminal investigation that foreign officials say stole more than $2 billion US from hundreds of thousands of people. CTV's Adrian Gabriel followed the money, and here's what he found.
A crime crafted by a Canadian-based company, carried out across the world.
It's like whack-a-mole. Every time you find one, you close it down, another one pops up.
Metaverse Foreign Exchange, also known as MTFE, pitched itself as a reputable trading platform. Federally incorporated in Ontario with a Canadian director, it was even registered with Canada's money laundering watchdog, FINTRAC. Now a joint investigation by the Investigative Journalism Foundation and CTV National News reveals that names associated with MTFE are part of a network of dozens of Canadian shell companies believed to be peddling cryptocurrency investment schemes. Marketed heavily to investors in Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, hundreds of thousands of people in those countries invested their money using MTFE's online app. In August 2023, the Canadian company's platform went offline, leaving clients in the dark. An estimate of more than $2 billion vanished.
I don't think people expect something like that to happen in a country like Canada.
In Bangladesh, one corporate lawyer has been following the money trail.
I think the target market for these products are the more vulnerable population.
Our investigation into Metaverse Foreign Exchange led us here to this office building in Markham, Ontario, Unit 500 to be exact. Once we began digging even deeper, we found a total of 97 money service businesses that have all used that one suite as their address. So we decided to follow the trail and pay Unit 500 a visit.
Hi, how are you? Good. My name's Adrian Gabriel. I'm with CTV National News.
Inside, we found a shared office space. A manager whose identity we're protecting alleges that there's a list of criminal companies using this location as their business address.
I have 650 legitimate clients here. Okay? 90% of them are good, legitimate businesses. There's 10% of that group that are not, but we can't keep track of the people that are using it.
In Sri Lanka, a criminal investigation has been opened. Court records show 3 people have been arrested for money laundering, and that MTFE's parent company in Canada allegedly pocketed 30 to 40% of all service fees. FINTRAC has suspended Metaverse's registration, though the director of Canada's Money Service Business Association believes the culprits behind this apparent made-in-Canada scam may have vanished, with far more than the $2 billion being reported.
Times that by 10. There's way more than just Metaverse. I guarantee you this group that you've discovered is still operating, just differently.
So who do we believe is behind Metaverse, and how are these criminal companies exploiting Canada's system? We dive into that tomorrow on CTV National News. Omar.
Fascinating reporting. All right, Adrian, thank you. Canada's envoy to New York will face questions from lawmakers about the government's new Manhattan condo. Tom Clark has been summoned to a parliamentary committee to testify about the decision to buy a $9 million apartment just south of Central Park. The opposition wants the purchase to be examined more closely. Global Affairs Canada says the current New York residence is not to code. Some good news from the Bank of Canada today. It cut rates again and signaled that Canadians can reasonably expect more reductions. But there was also a warning. CTV's Annie Bergeron-Oliver explains.
For the second time in less than 2 months, the Bank of Canada has cut interest rates, giving Canadians more purchasing power.
We are increasingly confident that the ingredients are now in place to bring inflation back to the 2% target.
That confidence prompted the central bank to decrease its policy interest rate from 4.75 to 4.5%, a level not seen since June 2023. And if inflation continues to ease, Macklem says more cuts will come.
It is reasonable to expect further cuts, but the timing is going to depend on incoming data.
One of the biggest factors holding up inflation is shelter costs, as mortgage interest rates and rents remain high. Realtors like Paul Chan say that pressure has kept many buyers and sellers on the sidelines, waiting for rates to drop.
The first rate cut
had a little bit of an impact, but now that we've got a second one, I think consumers will definitely gain that confidence.
As borrowing money gets cheaper, developers will have less interest to pay as they build more homes to meet the rising demand from Canadians who will now have more financial flexibility to buy in.
You're going to see builders being a little bit more busier, and this will also help with the resale and some clients that need to refinance their home or they want to become first-time investors.
Private sector economists say this is just the start of the bank's easing cycle. They're expecting at least 2 more cuts this year.
I think there's a chance that they don't pause, that they keep cutting into 2025 and, really for interest rates to normalize to around 3% during the second half of next year.
By that time, the Bank of Canada expects inflation to be back at 2%. But today it warned that getting there, Omar, may involve some temporary increases to inflation.
All right, Annie, thank you. Coming up, soccer shocker in Paris.
Those who had the direct involvement, we removed from Team Canada.
More fallout after Canada's defending champion women's team is accused of spying. The Canadian Olympic Committee has sent home an analyst and an assistant coach with Canada Soccer after accusations a drone was used to record the women's soccer team from New Zealand. The spying allegations so embarrassing, even Canada's Minister of Sport weighed in, writing that the actions of those involved do not reflect Canada's values or the values of sport. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth on the fallout right before the two countries are set to face off.
A major controversy for Canadian women's soccer heading into the Summer Games.
FIFA, I believe, indicated earlier today that they have begun a disciplinary proceeding in relation to the 3 individuals.
Team analyst Joseph Lombardi and assistant coach Jasmine Mander have been sent home. Head coach Bev Priestman has apologized and removed herself from tomorrow's opening match against New Zealand. Canada Soccer will launch its own independent external review after reports of drones flying over 2 separate New Zealand team practices.
New Zealand football has registered a complaint to FIFA and has in fact asked that no points be awarded to Canada in the event that Canada were to win.
Soccer journalist John Molinaro expects a thorough investigation.
Sort of financial sanctions or sporting penalties against Canada. But I don't think we've heard or seen the last of this.
As the defending gold medal champion in women's soccer, Canada enters this tournament as a signature team, a team that was already destined to receive a lot of media attention. Former professional soccer player Costa Ellis says the Canadian players must find a way to block this out and focus on their opening match.
And hopefully they'll get through it, but it doesn't make them feel good walking on a pitch, to compete.
This is the second Canadian soccer team to be involved in a drone incident. Back in 2021 in Toronto, Honduras, preparing to play Canada, stopped a men's World Cup qualifier practice after seeing a drone above the field. Paul Hollingsworth, CTV News, Halifax.
That controversy overshadowed today's announcement of Canada's flag bearers at the Paris Games. Canadian champions Maud Charon, a weightlifter, and sprinter Andre de Grasse will lead the team on Friday in the parade down the Seine.
This is going to be a big memory for me and, for my family to watch this and just to be a part of it.
I thought they made a mistake. I was not supposed to do the opening ceremony. And now I'm doing it and I'm leading it. It's such a great honor. I don't know enough words in English to express how I feel.
An incredible honor indeed. Still ahead.
The whale goes directly on the engine and I hear a crunch.
Whale watching of a whole different kind. At least 18 people are dead after a crash during takeoff in Nepal. Officials say the pilot is the only survivor after a plane skidded off the runway at the international airport in Kathmandu and caught fire. Police say all those on board were employees of the airline. The plane was heading to Nepal's second most populous city, Pokhara, for maintenance. Nepal is known to be one of the riskiest places to fly because of its mountainous terrain and sudden weather changes. 2 fishermen off the coast of New Hampshire got the surprise of a lifetime when a humpback capsized their boat. The entire ordeal caught on camera.
I see the head of the whale and the mouth is open and it comes straight up, and then as it goes horizontal, the mouth closes and the whale goes directly on the engine.
This is the moment the animal came out of the water, crashing into the boat. The terrifying moment captured by 2 teenagers in a nearby boat. One person was thrown into the water, another jumped in. Luckily, no one was seriously injured. What a story. After the break.
When I clean something, it gets cleaned and repaired and whatever else, and then everybody just all of a sudden notices the object, and not that I've been there.
Breathing new life into a beloved landmark. A well-known public art display that adorned a square for more than half a century in Atlantic Canada is being brought back to life. CTV's Sarah Plowman caught up with those working to restore it.
Sprayed with steam. Brushed with tiny touches. Delicate work on a more than 1,300-kilogram limestone sculpture of 2 beavers that for more than 60 years sat in the heart of Fredericton.
There was a lot of just weather damage in particular, and a lot of lichen.
Cracks discovered prompted the city to move the beavers into storage at the start of a revitalization project 8 years ago. The goal is to display them again indoors. Carved by Acadian artist Claude Roussel, this was once an 80th birthday gift to Lord Beaverbrook, the New Brunswick-born businessman who served in Winston Churchill's war cabinet and built Fredericton's Beaverbrook Art Gallery.
I think many people that grew up in Fredericton, and also those who visited Fredericton over the years, have seen them, had their photo taken with them, climbed on top of them.
The beavers are being cleaned, picked, scrubbed and massaged. The sculpture is art, and so is restoring it.
When I clean something, it gets cleaned and repaired and whatever else, and then everybody just all of a sudden notices the object, and not that I've been there.
Once this job is done, its next stop is the Beaverbrook Art Gallery.
Literally be the first thing you see as you walk in the Beaverbrook Art Gallery through the main doors.
So once again, people can appreciate the sculpture and the story that shaped it. Sarah Plowman, CTV News, Fredericton.
A lot of history. That's a snapshot of this Wednesday. For all of us at CTV National News, thank you for watching. Good night and see you tomorrow.
CTV National News, Canada's #1 newscast. Canada's #1 newscast for excellence in journalism.
We begin tonight with breaking news.
CTV National News with Omar Sachedina, winner of the Canadian Screen Award for Best National Newscast. Watch weeknights at 11.